All right, good evening. I have 6:30. I'll call to order this meeting of the Plan Commission for the City of Columbus for Monday, April 30th, 2018. Matt, if you're prepared, could you please take a roll call for us?
Hanson,
Present.
Kenny,
Here.
Monday,
Present.
Robbins,
Here.
Tome,
Here.
Parpart and Zapataki are excused.
We do have a quorum.
Yep.
Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Next item up is to approve the agenda. And just a note, you may want to amend the agenda because the minutes on number 6 have the wrong date. We've got 3:15 listed on the agenda, and we've got 3:22 in the packet.
Motion to approve the agenda, striking number 6, 315, and substituting it for 322, 2018 to match the minutes as presented in the packet.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as stated. Any questions on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Number 5, we have a new item tonight, which is citizen comments. In case there's any citizens present that would like to make any comments on our agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak? All right, okay. Thank you. Then on to unfinished business. We have none. 8, new business. Sorry. Sorry, you're right. Got ahead of myself. Need to approve the minutes then for March 22nd, 2018 that are in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes from March 22nd. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Again, no unfinished business this evening. On to new business A, which is public hearing for the request of Tyler Wolselka for a zoning amendment from B2 to R3 at 529 Newcomb Street. Unless there's anyone opposed, I'll open that public hearing now. Seeing none, the public hearing is open. Matt, I think I'd just best turn it over to you to kind of give everybody just a quick recap of what this is, but it's pretty basic and speaks for itself as far as the need for the rezoning.
Sure. Actually, I received a phone call probably about 4 weeks ago now, and asking about a zoning on a piece of property in town, and it was at 529 Newcomb. And it's currently zoned B2 highway commercial, and it's in a residential district, and you can see on your map. Did I not attach a map to this? Well, I attached the property survey. 529 Newcomb is it's right next to a church. It's off of between Birdsey and Lewis as you're going over the railroad tracks on that side of town. It's surrounded by a residential neighborhood, and it, for some reason, it was zoned B2. It really made no sense. And the issue was the applicant was trying to sell his property, and because his property is a non-conforming use, being single family, the bank would not issue a mortgage to the prospective buyer, because obviously if you lose your house, you're not allowed by code to rebuild because it's a non-conforming use. After looking at that, looking at our future land use map shows it as residential. It makes sense it's residential. It's in a residential neighborhood. So we're working with him to rezone the property. And that's why we called the special meeting tonight to work with the resident and hopefully get this resolved. And it did kind of note also a bigger issue. There's a few other properties that are like this, and I will be looking at them and addressing them in the future so we don't have a situation like this arise again. So.
Any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. All right, well, I don't see anybody present, but I do legally need to ask 3 times if there's anyone present that wishes to speak at this public hearing before we close it. So I'll ask for the first time if there's anyone present wishing to speak. Seeing none, I'll ask again for a second time. And again, for a third and final time, is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing. Then let's move on to item B, which is deliberate and make recommendations to the council on the request of Tyler Wolselka for a zoning amendment from B2 to R3 at 529 Newcomb Street. What is the will of the commission?
I move that the plan commission recommends to the council that you approve the applicant's zoning map amendment from B2 to R3.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the zoning amendment from B2 to R3 at 529 Newcomb Street. Any discussion on that motion? If none, should we take a roll call on that, Matt?
Sure. Hanson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Monday,
Aye.
Robbins,
Aye.
Tome.
Aye.
That motion passes.
All right, thank you. That recommendation will go on to the city council tomorrow evening then, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Item C then is another public hearing for the request of Timty Industries Incorporated doing business as Timty Incorporated for a conditional use permit for outdoor merchandise sales at 100 Columbus Fall River Road. We have the application in our packet. Again, this is needed for the outdoor sales end of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. Do you want me to?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can do it quick.
So, yeah, Timty is they sell, or I assume they manufacture, but this is going to be an operation office to sell grain hopper semi-trailers. So if you've ever seen something that's got like the open-ended hoppers going down the road that are semi-truck trailers, this is what they're going to be selling. So they've contacted Duffy Fleet Services to lease a small office space, and then to have display outdoors, and then also to have inventory of their trailers outdoors. And because they are going to be storing and selling their trailers outdoors, it requires a conditional use permit under our zoning code. So, and you can see in the application, they gave us a sketch of the site plan, and it shows that they'll roughly have 5,000 square feet in the front for display, and then in the back will be their inventory, and that's 21,000 square feet of of the parking lot. There's going to be no additional construction due to this project. It's just simply using space that is not being filled right now with Duffy Fleet Services. So.
Is the storage of the inventory behind the Duffy building?
Correct.
Okay. And then the display is kind of right up in the front, on the
Yeah.
corner of the pie there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, yeah, the front display is along Columbus Fall River Road, and then, you're right, the rear of the building will be their trailers.
Questions, concerns?
And this is a similar kind of conditional use that, say, Midstate has for their equipment, or the Ford dealer, or the Chevy dealer, or anybody else, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I was going to say Countryside actually received a conditional use permit in, I think it was 2014 when I was looking at the file. So, correct. This is not any different than that.
We've got a letter in here, and they're stating their hours Monday through Friday, 8 AM to 5 PM. I guess the one question I have is if we're granting conditional use, this is someone leasing rights to that property?
Correct.
So does that conditional use go away when that lease is void, or does this stay in that for zoning forever?
The conditional use is to the applicant.
Okay.
So in this case, it would be Timty. So if they went out and some other entity came in and wanted to do the same thing, they would have to come back to us
Okay, that makes
and get a
sense.
permit.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is that office a trailer?
No, the office will be within.
It's within the building?
Correct.
Oh, all right. Just seems odd that would be part of the,
No,
Perfect.
they have an empty office space that they're able to lease, that Duffy's able to lease to Timty.
strange that would be part of the permit.
Yeah, no, that was just more information that they provided us. Correct. The conditional use permit is for the outdoor storage. That was just more. Yeah.
like a little bit more time to read it over, or are we good? All right. Then I will ask for the first time if there's anyone present wishing to speak at this public hearing. Seeing none, I'll ask again for a second time if there's anyone present this evening that would wish to speak at this public hearing. Seeing none again for the third time, I'll ask if anyone wishes to speak at this public hearing for a conditional use permit for outdoor merchandise sales at 100 Columbus Fall River Road. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing then, and then we'll move on to item D, which is deliberate and make a recommendation to the council on the request for Timty Industries Incorporated, doing business as Timty Incorporated, for a conditional use permit for outdoor merchandise sales at 100 Columbus Fall River Road. Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, before I think we make a motion or move this along, when we had the representative here from, I think, US Cellular, we went through a conditional use permit with him, and looking at page 2, 3, and 4 of the application for conditional use for City of Columbus, there's kind of a whole slew of items, 1 through 10, that we kind of held him to make sure that he addressed every single item. That then carried over to, I believe, the couple who came in for the beekeeping, what would be the best way to describe it? Beekeeping supply company, I think, was using some area too, and we had them go back and kind of readdress a couple items. Looking through what was presented here by Timty versus what's kind of required in the application, I think precedent that was kind of set before was to at least kind of address the items 1 through 10. And I know in one of the lines for number 3, it says, if in the opinion of the applicant the matter is not pertinent, it should be stated clearly as to why it's not pertinent. I guess I know it's occupying a space in a building and using some already pre-existing lot area for display, but I think just to kind of keep precedent going and setting kind of a level of application status or quality of conditional use, I think that this should go back to them just to kind of clean it up for paperwork wise, even though it's kind of simplified. But that's just my 2 cents kind of from previous conditional use permits. And that might be a little bit above and beyond, I think, what we need, but I guess trying to carry forward consistency.
I guess I would ask that what would we be going through the motions to go through the motions, since it's not really a building or a structure, it's the use of that property, I guess? Would there be something that the city engineer would find that maybe we haven't found? Matt?
I mean, since they're just occupying an already constructed building, and they're not doing anything to alter the site in any way, shape, or form, some of these things, whether or not we need grading and stormwater plans, I mean, that was done when Duffy occupied. So some of these lighting plans, they're not changing the lighting. Landscaping plans, they're not changing that. A traffic study's probably not needed I mean, they're adding 1 employee there. I mean, I don't think, so some of the things, I agree that the checklist that we should always be cognizant of, but some of these items I didn't think were reasonable for Timty to have to address, because they're just leasing a small office building to sell their trailers.
Which I think was kind of the same conversation we had when the couple with the beekeeping, because they were occupying a building that was already vacant and kind of just coming in, and there was, are they generating traffic? Are they stormwater? No, not, but it was still kind of making sure that if we're putting out a document with checklists, that we're actually having the items even addressed in, I guess, like the application, because if you look at what Timty provided, it's a narrative of about 4 lines basically, and then some pictures and a drawing. I mean, and obviously it satisfies everything to address what they are proposing that they do, but it kind of doesn't hit our full, and with that whole line in there of, if you don't believe that this matter is pertinent to this application, then just say not pertinent, or, I guess. But I mean, if everybody thinks I'm just being a little too nitpicky, feel free to give me a stink eye and we can move on, I guess.
Well,
If there's
in the
consensus
future,
with the council.
I'll make sure that applicants will at least say if they, put some language in there that says they don't think these items are pertinent.
Yeah, I think it seems like with other applications and permits on the council, we're trying to make sure everything's kind of, uniform in one form that gets filled out every way, the certain way, like with the whole liquor license stuff or the areas for sale, that it's very clean and clear, that it's very consistent in what we're seeing. try to make sure everything kind of gets checked off, I guess, but.
I understand, yep.
So I mean, I guess I'd be okay with moving this forward under the condition that they could probably address these things in a quick resubmittal before tomorrow's council meeting.
Well, what would you need them to address?
To lay out the items 1 through 10 and then enumerate if they feel, if they feel it's not pertinent to the application.
Okay.
Uriah?
I was just gonna say, in this particular case, I think I'd be happy to move on based on what they had. Matthew and other staff presumably have looked through this and have sort of made that mental checklist of
Yep.
not applicable. But I agree with you about the consistency thing. What I would suggest is that perhaps this form is changed, not the material part of it, simply with 2 check boxes at the beginning of each one. See attached or not applicable. That way, the applicant has self-certified that these are the things that they've included. Because I think that's more what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Right? The
Because it's
consistency
one of those
thing.
things where
It's
if
the
nothing's
applicant that's
addressed-
saying, here is the complete
Yeah.
package. And then staff can say, yes, I see where this is attached, just the way you said it's attached.
Or is it, did they forget to put it in there?
Right.
And if it's not
Okay.
addressed, it's
So-
not, either way, it's not addressed.
So I totally understand where you're going. It's probably superfluous in this particular case, particularly given the time frame we have between today and tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you for your input, Uriah.
Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah.
I get the point of consistency too, but I guess there's probably always going to have to be some level of discretion if
Yeah.
Matt sees something, oh, Jason better get a look at this, because, you know.
And I kind of already had in the back of my mind that revising, well, not just this form, but all the application forms that we have, just to make them easier for the applicant and for staff and for you folks, so.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, and it's one of those things where like, obviously like, you know, you and Jason have already gone through the mental gymnastics of making sure everything's here, but just kind of having it so it's very clear to anybody who picks up the packet.
Yep.
That if something's not addressed at all, was it addressed or was it not addressed or forgotten, I guess, kind of help clean things up, but.
All right. I guess we see all sorts of different things come through here, so I don't want to make someone jump through hoops that don't exist, but having that checkbox, I think, makes it very
Yeah.
clear that it's been looked at by staff and they've deemed that it's not required in certain situations.
We'll add it to the long list of things that are gonna kind of be reformed and reworked and cleaned up for future processes.
Okay.
I
Anything
guess
else?
with that, I'll make a motion to, oh geez, where's the language here for it? To recommend to the council on the request of Tempe Industries Incorporated doing business as Tempe Incorporated for a conditional use permit for outdoor merchandise sales at 100 Columbus Fall River Road.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to recommend the approval of the conditional use permit for outdoor merchandise sales at 100 Columbus Fall River Road for Tempe Incorporated. Any discussion on that? If none, let's please take a roll call, Matt.
Sure. Where did my work? Hanson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Monday,
Yes.
Robbins,
Aye.
Tome,
Aye.
pass 5-0.
Thank you. Then on to
So-
item, oops, sorry.
I was just gonna say before we move on with these two, for whatever reason, in the past, we've had the CSMs divvied up into 2 different things where you discuss it, then you come out of the discussion and then approve it, which I'm not really sure why you've done that, so I guess this is more of a question of clarification. Is that needed? Do we need 2 CSM items?
To just combine them into requests?
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's
Is there-
essentially you're making a recommendation to the council.
There's no need for a public hearing for that?
No.
Okay. Then it's one item, I guess.
It'd probably be-
I left it as 2, because I was just like,
Yeah, I mean,
why?
it'd probably be like our regular meeting where it's consider and take action. That's basically what these 2 are, separated out.
I just thought I'd ask, but, I mean, we'll still go with the agenda as it is, but,
Okay. Item E then is consider the request of Drexel Building Supply for a review of a certified survey map to divide parcel 1110.002 to create 3 new lots, with 2 lots being dedicated to the city of Columbus.
I'll, you want me to just give you a
Yep.
brief overview? So, really, there's 2 items that are going on here. One, and the most important one, is the dedication of Hall Road. This will allow us to have the project let here in May, and then keep us on our timeline to have the road built by the end of August. So we've been working with Quam to have the CSM completed in a timely fashion so we can move forward with the road construction. The other item is the outlot that will be dedicated at a future point to the city. But at this point, this is just splitting off the two separate parcels. Drexel will still own the outlot, and the city will accept the outlot when they've gone through and verified the depths in the ponds, and we're satisfied with the pond that they've built. So at this point, we're just creating the lots. We're not assuming, obviously, ownership until a later date. Just wanted to make that clear. But it's a fairly simple CSM. Jason and I have reviewed it. They've showed everything that is required by our code in the 5-page document that you see before you. At a certain point, after, because they're dedicating the Hall Road to the public, Mary will need to sign, and then Megan will need to sign before they take it up to the county. So at some point, I imagine on Wednesday, they'll probably be in here for your signatures, unless they get it tomorrow night. And maybe I'll see if I can get a clean draft without the drafts, or the clean copy without a draft stamp for you guys to sign for him tomorrow.
Okay.
But that's really, I mean, it's pretty, are there any questions?
This is just to approve the CSM, and then the dedication, it will be a future issue for the city council, correct, to accept that stormwater outlet, or
Correct.
outlot in the
That will-
street
Correct.
prior to construct, or after construction, I'm assuming, is when that all gets
Yes.
dedicated. Okay. Any questions? Looks like Uriah's still reading.
Is there and maybe I'm behind, there used to be a need for a DOT to also sign off on a road dedication adjacent to a state highway.
That,
I'm going to be admittedly behind the times on that, I guess I trust Jason.
I was supposed to say, that's one where Jason did not raise that as an issue, and
Trans 233 was the
I would have to check with him, but,
administrative code section. Okay.
I mean, we've asked for 10 revisions, and they've made every single one, and that one doesn't stick out to me, so
Okay.
I'm trusting that Jason's correct, but I'll double check
It would be
before
good.
tomorrow,
Yeah, that would be,
before it's official, before council adopts.
then if anything additional needed to be done, we're aware of it right away, but, thanks, Uriah.
It might be that it's a 4-lot rule or something, like there's not enough lots involved here, but
Okay.
yeah. Have the cart in front of the horse, especially if you're planning on bidding something.
Yeah. Any other concerns, Uriah? Unless there's any other questions, then I'll entertain any motion from the commission. Or actually, we'll go on to number F, which is consider recommendation to the common council on the certified survey map of parcel number 1110.002 to create 3 new outlots, with 2 lots being dedicated to the city of Columbus.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council to approve the certified survey map as presented and subject to staff comment.
Second.
Motion is second to provide or approve recommendation to the common council on the certified survey map as read, with the staff comments, if any. Any questions on that? If none, let's please take a roll call, Matt.
Sure. Wait, who was the second there? Okay, I apologize. Hanson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Monday,
Yes.
Robbins,
Aye.
Tone.
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes. And then on to item G, which is discussion of minimum single-family home size in residential zoning districts. Since
All right.
I'll turn it over to Matt since there's not much in our packet about that, so.
I actually did prepare a little
Oh, okay.
memo this time. It's in the back.
Oh, there we go.
I didn't have time previously. So recently, our building inspector, Jake, received a question about minimum housing size in residential zoning districts. And then after reviewing our code, there isn't one. I mean, there's no minimum floor area for a single-family zoning district. So we have the R1 through the well, technically you can put single-family housing in R4, which is our multifamily district. And there's no minimum floor area. And I guess the question was raised is, at some point, does the city want to consider having a minimum floor area? The one thing I'll say is I did, anticipating questions, I went and looked at a variety of local zoning codes, and it was mixed. It's not 100% that everybody has a minimum floor area for their single-family zoning districts. I would say the majority of them did. I kind of stopped after I looked at 5 or 6. But it's something that I guess with the one concern would be, is if somebody wanted to come in and build a 500 square foot house in the middle of a zoning district in a new subdivision, they theoretically could. I don't know if that's an issue that the city finds. I don't know. I don't know if it's something the city wants to address in their zoning code or not. And I just thought I'd bring it in front of this board. The one thing I would say is, from my, I guess, very limited experience here, most of the developers that we're working with that develop the subdivisions, they're already working with builders, and they're gonna usually be building a decent sized home on the lots. So, I mean, it's an issue that probably takes care of itself, but I mean, as I said, we wanted to bring it up to the boards, or at least to the plan commission for their discussion, and maybe elevate it to the council if needed. So with that.
What zoning districts would fall under what you're calling single-family zoning districts?
Well,
Is it more than one?
yeah, well, you have the R1 through the R1 through R4 all allows single family. And then you also have the RD, which is rural development, which is the minimums on that are 2 acre lots. Typically, what happens with that zoning is when we annex a property into the city, if we don't designate the zoning at the time when the land is annexed, it just goes into that RD zoning as a default. So typically, that zoning is associated with the undeveloped areas, mainly on the west side of the city. That's currently predominantly in agricultural use right now. So.
Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, kind of a dumb question for our residential zoning district. Structure permanent, I'm assuming, like supplied with utilities, not like a mobile trailer or a mobile home. I guess what is the
Permanent.
permanent?
Correct.
Okay.
The R5, which is our mobile home district, I believe is the only one that allows a non-permanent structure.
I was just thinking of if this request came in because somebody wanted to pull in like one of those tiny homes that's pseudo permanent where you put it down, but it is able to be moved because of the size of it or not. I guess, is that kind of what somebody was asking about, that this question came up to?
I think that was what the intent was behind the question from Jake, was that, if this becomes something that somebody wants in the city, like we don't really have it clearly defined in our code. And that's where that discussion was going, and that's why we're here.
I guess, is there a concern of, if somebody wanted to build, for example, a 500 square foot very small, simple home on a lot in a building or a housing subdivision, I guess at the end of the day, besides less assessed value for tax-wise, I guess what is it for us to say what an appropriate size home is for somebody? Question posed.
Couldn't you survey some of the local communities around to see what, like Beaver Dam?
I have, and you need to look in Beaver Dam had the minimums, Marshall, Waterloo, Portage, Waupun, all had minimums. They varied in size.
By a lot, or were there as a common
No,
theme?
but I mean, it was kind of like 900 to 1,200 square feet in that range,
As a minimum?
minimum, yeah.
Uriah?
I'd like to just play out a couple of scenarios for consideration. In general, I think this is a solution looking for a problem. But, okay, so if I lived in a subdivision that had large homes and there were vacant lots within that subdivision, would I feel like my property value would be diminished if somebody rolled up and built a small home on a large lot in my neighborhood? I would probably feel that way, but let's consider a person that wants to build a small home. Likely, a person who is interested in building a small home is also interested in finding a small lot for said small home. So it's kind of a problem that solves itself. I like your point, Matthew, about the mobility of it. If it's mobile, maybe we should clarify in our code that says this is considered a mobile home, right? And maybe the definition already says that, anything without a permanent foundation that can't be moved away is considered a mobile home. Maybe that solves it. I don't know. I'm thinking, not to name names, I'm thinking of Steve Black's subdivision out on County K, right? Those are all smaller homes, but those are also similarly sized throughout the neighborhood, smaller lots, etc. So contextually, that's all fine, right? So I think really the underlying problem, if I were to guess at it, is somebody with a larger home and a larger subdivision that is fearful that a smaller home might be built or could be built under our code and would diminish their property value.
What about the size of the home would necessarily diminish the property value for your neighbor? I mean, if somebody came in and wanted to build a 800, 900, 500 square foot home on a larger lot, and then they use the subsequent savings to make a garden, a topiary, menagerie, if you will. I mean, I guess one of those things where a lot of people seem to have a sensitivity about loss of property value, but at the end of the day, that person, if they sell that home, they're obviously making a home that's very specific for a very specific market. Not everybody's going to buy a 500 square foot home. And if it's kept up well and well maintained and meets all typical, I guess, housing requirements and whatnot, it would kind of match in with everybody else's value. Just the value would be different. I guess I'm trying to see where the loss of value would come from. Because maybe somebody would want to buy a small home and has a very large yard because of the fact that it is a smaller home on a larger lot.
I agree. I don't see, like, I'm not sure I would feel that it was a detractor, but
Yeah.
it's in the eye of the beholder, so, I don't know. I'm not sure that we need to.
I know. I agree with you.
Regulate it
I feel like this is one of those things where, like, it's obviously a loophole or an open spot within the code, but I think by defining the mobile home aspect, you would kind of drive somebody not pulling in, or they do bring in a small one and they plop it down on a foundation and it becomes a permanent structure, and then it's taxable and pay utilities and matches with everybody else. And
I think that the comment you made before is what I'm thinking is it's the home size versus the lot size. Is how do you have some consistency or some expectancy there? Because I think as you grow and you want enough density to create valuation for the growth, to offset the services you need to provide for that growth. You don't want to have everybody with a 4-acre lot and a 500 square foot home in the center of it. You're gonna have to grow pretty far, and you're not gonna add a lot of valuation. So I think it's finding that balance. I don't want to restrict anyone from building a small home if it's on the appropriate lot, I guess. So I think you can be flexible, but I don't know where you would start with a minimum measurement, to tell you the truth, or you deal with it when it comes to us, you know?
Would it be like
Or it doesn't, I guess.
a percentage of square footage versus lot square footage to
Well,
kind of?
you need to have certain setbacks, but I mean, if there's a lot that's just not buildable, what are you gonna do? Build a 7-story house that's 10 feet wide by 5 feet wide? I don't know how much effort someone's gonna put into building on a lot that's not buildable if you have to have a setback from your neighbor's buildings, whatever. I think the tiny home thing is different because that's not, unless that's stick-built on site, that's not a permanent structure. So I think if someone was bringing out a caravan of tiny homes, I would see that being more zoned as like a trailer park or whatever, not just individual homes. That's my inclination.
These other communities that you looked at, Matthew, how did they express their minimum? Was it a percentage or was it a square footage?
No, it was minimum floor area.
Okay.
I don't want to make a lot unbuildable to a certain degree, so I don't know that creating ordinance around it is, that we're at that place, I guess.
No,
That's just the way that
And this hasn't been an issue so far. It's just, it was one of those things that we were discussing at a DT, and we wanted to bring it to the Plan Commission to see if they had any strong feelings about it one way or another, and that's pretty much it.
Matt, I know down in Madison, there's a little community of small homes that are kind of clustered together. In talking to Beaver Dam, Marshall, Waterloo, Portage, Upon, you have listed in here. Did anybody, when you pose this question to them, do they have any examples of even small homes with like less than, you said that their range for their kind of sizing was about 900 to 1,200 square foot. Did they express to even have this come up as even an issue?
I didn't place any phone calls.
Okay.
I found their zoning codes online and just made a quick review of,
Okay.
what
Kind
their
of did a
minimums
spot
are.
check review of what they had for theirs.
Just went to their, yeah. So I didn't, I could if
Yeah.
needed, but I was just looking to see if somebody had something in their code and what the sizes were. And
No, but I agree with you, Mike. Obviously, having 500 square foot house on a 2-acre lot, we're really not getting the evaluation that you would have for services. I feel like people aren't going to be building these kind of homes in the area, and if they do, it's going to be an oddball person coming in and kind of wanting to do one, and it's going to be such a drop in the bucket. But
The tiny homes to me seem to be more of an urban thing that you're seeing in very large communities
Yeah.
where they're kind of all in one area. I think when you look at some of the old neighborhoods in some of the larger cities too, with the row homes or the little Cape Cods that are 800 square feet, I don't know that there's a large demand for a house like that right now. And I think when we're looking at the developers, they're kind of driving, this is what we do, this is what our builder builds for us. Unless someone's gonna come in and buy a lot and say, I want to do this, and it's a little bit differently. I think Matt's trying to get to the point that there is no restriction. So if
Correct.
someone came forward for a building permit, it would be issued, and there would be no argument from us at that point. But I think there's still enough hoops to go through once they get that building permit, I would suppose, that how small would anybody build a house?
at that point, once it would just be through the building permit process. There wouldn't really be anything from the zoning perspective that I would be involved in.
Yeah.
I mean,
They would still be
it'd be
re-
straight to Jake, and Jake would
Yeah.
just be making sure they're building their structure according to our codes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and as you're right, we wanted to make sure that at least the Plan Commission was aware that there is no minimum and have this discussion, and that's really all we were requesting.
I would doubt it would become an epidemic issue that we'd be dealing with. Kelly, did you want to make any comments about this or not? I know you had some interest.
I have a lot to say, but I'm not gonna publicly say anything at this point.
Okay, all right.
I guess the only thing I would say is that some of the demographics could be changing, aging populations, people not having as many kids. Maybe there would be demand for smaller homes. I don't know what size would be an appropriate one. I'm not entirely comfortable with I don't know what size would be the appropriate size, or if we should be making that determination. I think that there's, I think enough influences the other way to not necessarily need to put in that kind of restriction.
Uriah?
If we as a community really think it's a concern, and we believe the concern is tied to having a small home on a large lot, we could restrict it based on lot size, and it doesn't need to be tied to the zoning designation. In other words, it would be a clause in each of the four zoning designations that anything over a, whatever, pick a number, 3/4 of an acre can't have a home smaller than blank, right? So it's, because R1 can be on all sorts of lots of all sorts of different sizes. There's a minimum lot size in R1, which I think is 8,000 square feet. Is that much bigger? Is R2 the?
I want to say it's like 13,000.
Okay.
So it's like, it's.
Maybe I'm
over-
thinking
it's-
of R2, but sure. But those have minimums and no maxima, correct? Right, so you could have an R2 lot that's 20,000 square feet versus an R2 lot that's 8,500. Well, why would you put the same restriction on either of those two lots? So if it's a big lot, it's a small house, I'll use the word issue, even though I think in general, none of this is really an issue. That could be the mechanism to do it.
Yeah. So Matt, what do you think? I mean, it seems like you wanted to come here and ask us for our consensus, I guess. It doesn't sound like this is a problem that we feel like we need to fix right now, but
Yeah, that's all I don't really need any, yeah. I just wanted the discussion and see if you guys felt it needed to be elevated to the council. So. At this point, I don't hear any.
I guess
so
I would just
we can-
kind of echo what Uriah said. I think any solution would be based off of, a percentage of home to lot, just and as minimal, I guess, as possible to get that fear of the 500 square foot home on a 2 acre
Yeah.
lot. I mean, so that can be taken care of with as least intrusive sort of ordinance, be my thought. Instead of picking a number.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think that you can pick the right number. Is that something that you can maybe just take back to staff as kind of a recommendation from this body, that was the one thing revealed, is the lot size versus the home size? Or maybe you can look at other communities to see if they have any sort of zoning restriction through that. I don't know if that's, are we?
We're kind of making some presumptions about the underlying issue, perceived issue. Maybe it's as, not simple as, but maybe the first step is to maybe prod Jake a little more about what some of the background information was, right? We're guessing a little bit.
yeah, I don't know. We just, as I said, we talked about it at DT and our development team meeting, and Paul and Jake, and after talking, they're like, well, let's see what the plan commission thinks. So that's kind of, this was the first step, and if you guys don't think it's an issue, I don't necessarily disagree, and we can just close it and move forward, I guess. I mean, unless you want us to look at the lot size ratios, we can look at it and come back. We can have Jake come back if he thinks there's an issue that he wants to see us discuss, or I don't, at this point, there's really nothing for me to add.
I personally would say until he's maybe a little more forthcoming about what the nature of the question really was, and bring more information forward, I'd say we're guessing a little bit,
Yeah.
a lot of bit.
I'm making a lot of assumptions, I guess.
Okay. Well, thank you for the discussion.
Any further comments or questions on that item? If not, I'll move on to number 9 then, which is to adjourn. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Stand adjourned. Thank you. And it's still light out.
Yeah.
You made it. Congratulations. Now, was there no meeting on last, or?
Well, there was not a quorum, so we didn't have a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Next meeting, yeah, is May
I figured that
17th.
out reading like the minutes, I was like, I'm pretty sure I missed one, because I had to,
Yeah.
I had to go in front of the plan commission in a community in Illinois for work, right, on that